Welcome back. I'm Bob German, and I'm here with my colleague Ayca.
Hi, everyone.
And we're going to continue building this bot for Microsoft Teams. And so when we last saw our heroes, we had created the bot, and we had created the bot channel registration in Microsoft Azure. And then we pasted the bot ID, which is the same as the app ID for the bot, into the Teams chat box. And we were able to chat with the bot that way. So what are we going to do this time, Ayca?
So next, we need to create Teams app for our bots. And then when our Teams app is ready, we will try something else. We will try adding some new features into our. It's actually really basic. We just want our bot to say, "Who am I?" We will just ask, "Who am I?" and our bot will reply back, "Hi, Bob German," or "Hi, Ayca." This is a really basic feature, but it will require us to add Azure Active Directory application registration because we will use Microsoft Graph at the end of the day. And while we're using Microsoft Graph, we will just get user information, which is me, actually. So we will only get the profile information. And where are we going to call these graph? We will call this graph in a new intent Bob will create, right? Bob, you will create who am I intent in our bot composer bot.
Exactly. So even though it's a simple one of just who am I, just get back the username, it's going to be the same pattern that we can use over and over and over again to call different things in the Microsoft Graph. So,
yes.
So let's go ahead and into that then. I'm just going to go ahead and go into a tool called Teams App Studio to create an app for this bot. And we're picking right up where we left off last time. So I'll create a new app, and they make you fill in all these fields. So you can't leave any of them blank, or it will not. Teams won't like it. This is a good thing because it means that the apps are all going to be consistent in Teams. But for now, you've got to watch me type everything.
But to do that, we don't have to write any code. Actually, you just go to App Studio and you fill out some information about your bot, and you will directly start connecting with your bot through your brand new created Teams bot.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. There's no need to write any. We haven't written any code. We're not going to in this whole series. We're not going to write any real code. So, so I could put some icons there, some branding icons, but I'm going to keep it simple and just go to bots and set up my bot. I could create a new bot, in which case App Studio would register the bot for me. However, it registers it in the old bot developer portal, which doesn't actually allow some of the features, such as connecting to the graph. So I'm going to use the bot registration that we created in the last video. So I'll say existing bot, and now I'll paste in the bot ID, which is also the Microsoft App ID for the bot, and basically reuse that. And there are different scopes here. So Ayca, I know you've worked with these. What are the different options here? It says personal, team, or group chat.
Yeah, so now we're creating the bot. There are different types of purposes we create Teams bot. If we choose personal, that means that we can use this bot as our personal chat. That means you can chat with the bot. If you choose team, then you can add the bot in your team. It can be purpose for maybe poll, or maybe you can create a survey with your bot. There are different scenarios we use that. Or you can add the bot in the group chat, which is a casual group chat in Teams. You can add your bot in there, and you can actually choose 3 of them at the same time, and you can use your bot in any purpose. For our demo, we only need the personal one because it's just a basic demo. But if you want to test your bot in different places on Teams, just go ahead and choose 3 of them and see how your bot is working in different areas.
Sounds good. So we're going to just do personal then, and I will go ahead and test this out. So I'll install this locally. By the way, if you want this to work, there's inside of Teams administration, you need to turn on you need to go into Teams applications setup policies and turn on the ability to upload and sideload apps for the user or for everyone in this case. Otherwise, it won't let you do that from App Studio. So here I am now running the app, and it's the same except for it says the name of the app at the top instead of the name of the bot. And you can see that I'm getting my welcome messages and everything is pretty much working the same.
I think the best thing about creating the bot and continue building your application is that you can pin your bot on the left, and whenever you change something else, you can continue testing with your bot instead of just using your app ID to connect with your bot. That's why I think it's a really nice to add at the beginning instead of just waiting until the end.
I agree. And also you can add tabs and other things, but that's for another video, I guess, or another series of videos, who knows?
Maybe.
Okay, so let's go to the next step now. So now let's go back to Microsoft Azure, and this is the bot channel registration. I'm going to go into Azure Active Directory because we're going to call the Microsoft Graph to get that profile information as you described. And you can't call the Microsoft Graph without registering an application, because that's part of the security of it, is that it's not just the user, you actually have to have an application that's registered and that has permission.
I think there's a really basic explanation for that. So without logging in, we cannot get the user profile information. Nobody wants their own email address or their own display name showing up in the application, in any kind of application. That's why we need authentication first before we get any data from Microsoft 365 Cloud. That's why Bob needs Azure Active Directory app registration in this point.
That's good. Yeah, exactly true. And well said. I'm going to go ahead and add this app registration. And for now, I'll keep it as just accounts in my organizational directory or my tenant. And this is kind of hard-coded. So this is just part of the bot channel service. When it does the authentication or the login, it's going to send control back to this location. So just type it exactly like this. And I can go ahead and register the app. Now I'm going to go and once again create a client secret, because this is, like you say, this is another login. So I need to have I need to basically have an identity and a password for that. So I'm going to put that also into my little safe hidey hole here. And this will be my graph access application. I'll put that client secret in there. And then I'm going to come back and grab the app ID, which is also called a client ID. And I'm going to grab the tenant ID off of there. This time, however, instead of it being the bot composer where I put this information, I'm actually going to put it into the bot channel registration. That will allow the bot itself to log the user in. So before I do that, I'm going to give it permission. So let's just go ahead and go into Microsoft Graph. And we're going to use delegated permissions, which means that we're running on behalf of a user. Otherwise, we couldn't get the user's name because we wouldn't have a user there. And I'll just say, yeah, go ahead and allow OpenID profile and user.read permission.
Perfect.
So now I'm going to go back to the bot registration. And there it is. And I'm going to actually copy some of that stuff into there. So notice that it says no OAuth connections defined. I'm going to create an OAuth. OAuth is the protocol that Azure AD uses for logins. And notice there's a ton of different service providers here. The list goes on and on. I'm just going to use Azure Active Directory v2. But you could use, if you actually wanted to log in to some other service like GitHub or Slack or something, you could actually, those are actually there on the list. I'm not sure about Slack, but anyway, there's a bunch, there's a large list there. So I can paste in my client ID now and my client secret. Don't tell anybody. And the tenant ID. This one wants the tenant ID. So I'll take that. And all this is doing is allowing the bot channel to handle the login process, which you'll see in just a sec. And I'll ask, I need user.read. That's the one that I need to call the me endpoint that you mentioned earlier. Now let's go ahead and add that other intent as you said. So I'll add another trigger. And I'm just going to use the regex pattern who. So anything with the word who in it, who's on first or whatever, I'm going to, we'll respond to this. And I'm going to go ahead and the actions that I use. So when I click the plus sign, these are called actions. And the first thing I'm going to do is an OAuth login. And you just have to do this once. And it will actually, the user will only see it if they're not already logged in. So it will store the user's login for, I think, several months. So the user is not going to get prompted very often. But we still need to have this there before we call the graph, even if it's done invisibly to the user. So what I put in here is some information to show the user what's the text and the title when I ask them to log in, and then where am I going to put the token that I get back? The access token is what you need to put into your graph call, so graph knows you're a valid caller. So we'll explain this in the next video. There's a scope called dialog, which basically means I'm making a variable called OAuth in the scope of this dialog, which is the simple bot dialog up above. And so that's where I'm going to store the result of this login. Then, now that I've logged the user in, I'm also going to access an external resource and send an HTTP request. Notice this is built into Bot Composer, doesn't require any premium features of any kind. And I'm just going to put the URL graph.microsoft.com/v1.0/me, which is the one that you mentioned earlier, Ayca.
Yep, gets the user information.
And now I need to put the access token in there. So the way to do that is you create a header, an HTTP header called authorization with a value of bearer at space and then the token. So remember, we put the result of the login into a variable called dialog.oauth. Inside of there is the token. So dialog.oauth.token is going to get this long character string that is cryptographically signed that tells the graph, yes, this is a valid caller. And not only that, but this is who the caller is so that we can return the correct information. And I'm going to put the results of this in another variable called dialog.graphResult. And I'm going to say this has to be a JSON. And that's going to allow us to kind of parse the result as JSON. So the last thing I'm going to add is just the output. So send a response, and notice that it's a pretty simple syntax. So you just put your response, and then when you want to insert a variable, you put $, and then inside of squiggly brackets, you put the variable. So $dialog.graphResult.content.job title. So I'm going to show the job title as well as the username. So there's the username, the display name, and we'll put that and the job title. Okay, so let's test it out. So we'll restart the bot.
Awesome. So when you build this, Bob, that means you call Graph API. For now, we are only getting information about user profile. But if we change this to any graph call, that means we can get any kind of data from Microsoft.
That's right. We would just need to change the scope, which is kind of the permission, depending on what the call was. So if you wanted to read a file, you need files.read, for instance. So this is really the key. Like, if you can learn these steps, they're not too many. Follow them. Don't even worry too much. If you just go rewind the video and go through them all along with the video, you'll be able to then build on that, all these other graph calls. And in fact, that's what we're going to do in the next few videos as well. So
Yes.
So this is fun. So now let's try it. Who am I? And it's going to ask me to log in. So again, it's only going to ask me this because I've not logged in before to the bot. I'm logged into Teams, but the bot is a different application. And I'm actually logging into that graph access application that you saw me register a few minutes ago. And I click login and nothing happens. Wah, wah, wah. Kind of sad. Oops, I forgot to do something. What I forgot to do, so Teams has a level of security in here, which is you can't just go sending users off to random URLs. They have to be marked as valid. So in this case, I need to put that same location, token.botframework.com, into the valid domains list for this app, or else Teams. So what was happening there, I was clicking the bot, and the bot was trying to pop up a dialog for me, a little dialog box, and it was failing because the valid domain was not there. So I'm going to increment the version number and republish the bot. If I didn't increment the version number, it might not update. That's how it knows that this is a new version. And so I'll go ahead and do that. And now I can click the button and hey, there it is. So now I'm logging into Azure AD and it's asking me for those same permissions. Because I'm an admin, I would have the option to consent on behalf of the whole organization, but I'm not going to do that. Normal users would just not see that checkbox, but they would still log in the same. And there it is. Ta-da! Not the most spectacular output in the world, but we'll get more advanced in the future videos. And what we're going to do is build a bot that was actually your idea. I thought it was really cool, which is, so just as a little background for the audience, our team that Ayca and I are on, we are distributed all over the world. And so it's really hard to know who's online and kind of keep up with your teammates, which you might do if you were in the same office. And so that's what this bot, we're going to actually build a bot that lets you know who's around, who's online, and allows you to interact with them. All built on these same principles that you saw right here.
I actually find it really, really useful because it's really hard to check out time zones sometimes. But stay tuned, continue watching our upcoming videos. Thanks for watching this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Microsoft 365 developer videos. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. See you on the flip side.